Welcome back to another episode of All the Glitters. I'm your host, Kalen Hurley. Let's start this show. So, after a little bit of a slowdown, we have some hockey news, guys. And it involves it does involve the offseason. Let's go with that. And everybody's favorite off-season hockey pastime, at least players wise, if they're not traveling back home, overseas, things like that, seems to be staying here in North America and playing golf. Now, this isn't a current player that we're about to talk about, but Nick Tarnasky played 243 games in the NHL with 295 penalty minutes. I think his more impressive stat is the 36 games he played in the KHL with 173 penalty minutes. Absolutely ragdolled another man on a golf course in Alberta. Now, I saw the video earlier this weekend and I was like, okay, cool. Two very Canadian people fighting. Shocker. Um, you know, I play golf quite often. I think probably too often if you ask my wife. Average 2 to 3 times a month. So it's nothing crazy. I'm not like a multiple time a week guy and try to get early morning rounds. I try not to let golf get in the way of family time. But there's some things, some unwritten rules about the game of golf. You try to play and keep courteous. If you're playing slow, you try to play through. You never know. I'm not a very dirty round golfer or a party golfer. My bachelor party, the most recent dirty round I think I've played in a long time, but that's, as to be expected on a day like that. Um, I don't smoke cigars when I golf. I don't drink while I'm out there golfing. It's pretty clean. I'm trying to get better, and I enjoy just being out in the little bit of nature that Las Vegas provides on these golf courses. And I'm trying to get better at the game and try to get as low a score as I can. Now, apparently, the group that Nick Tarnasky was in had rolled up, waiting, and maybe two. I don't know if it was a twosome or a foursome, but seemingly not letting them play through, which another little unwritten rule. If you are going to be slow, someone behind you asks to play through, let them go. They'll play ahead of you. No harm, no foul. Apparently, via the audio and the dialogue going, they were waiting about, let's just say 15, 20 minutes. I think time can get a little bit, especially when you're upset, waiting on someone, be a little bit exaggerated. But let's even say they were waiting 10 minutes on a tee box. There was nobody ahead of them. That's a long time to wait for someone just to tee off, because that hole is probably going to take another 10. So they're waiting. And obviously, I think that they realize how drunk these two people were. The one guy who looks to be about my size, which is not a very large gentleman at all. He's probably average. He's probably 5'10", 5'11". I am not 5'10", 5'11", but normal build, not a big fat guy, not a super big giant swole guy either, but not a small tiny person. And he ended up letting the liquor get the best of him. He starts shouting, and I think in his brain he kind of went to a place where, like, if I can get the loudest and the craziest sounding, he'll back down. Well, he didn't. And the dude proceeded to get closer, get louder, ended up getting into Nick's face. And he was like, listen, if you do that, I'm going to toss you into the lake. And he never got wet, which is the problem. I think if he had actually been into the lake, it would have been 10 out of 10 better. They ruffle, they go down, looks like to be in some like deeper rough, kind of like whatever lakeside shrubbery. Gets out, then starts to rush him, and instincts took over. Grabbed dude by the collar, pulled him in, and just kept feeding him rights. Now, there's two parts of the video that makes my entire heart smile from within. I think the one that everyone likes, and I love it as well, is the dialogue as he's punching. Every right hand connecting is a loud, audible bang. He's saying bang as he's connecting to this dude's head. You could hear the punch land. You could hear the bang come out. It's beautiful. Excuse me. It is it's majestic. It's perfect. If you're going to fight, by the way, don't condone it, especially in public. People have listen. If you as an adult start fighting and you got to like factor in your insurance deductible and like they didn't harm your family, I think you need to be turning around, walking away, take a couple deep breaths, and maybe contact your insurance and talk about some like anger management or some counseling sessions. But if you're defending yourself, as seemingly Nick was defending himself, and by the way, the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Department, RCMP thinks the same thing. They're not going to file for extra charges. So, I mean, obviously, when everyone has a recording device in their pocket, you see the whole thing. And it initially, in they were yelling, but they were like, "Hey, just hurry up, let's go, or let us play through." And then debauchery happens. But then after the bang bang bang, as a drunk does, didn't go down, zombied his way back up, and instead of hitting him more, because I do think like I didn't his height weight, he's like 6'3", like two something, and that was his playing weight. He's a big boy now. He's probably 240, 250, 260, something like that. He's got some move behind his punches. I think his slightly cooler head may have prevailed and said, "Hey, I could probably really hurt this guy." And instead of punching him again, my favorite part of the video is he went to punch him, but instead of actually going, he went underneath the armpit of his left side, and he stepped in with everything and hurtled him in the air. He probably flew 4.5, 5 feet. And if you're a grown man throwing another grown man and you were airborne for 4.5, 5 feet or more, you've been just absolutely ring tossed. I mean, it's crazy. He hucked him. And I think at that point I would have rather been knocked out cold and peed myself, like having like an unconscious incontinence and just piss. Because in the air, his body decided to, like a fainting goat, just go limp, and then he just like slid another 4 or 5 feet, and then Nick kind of gave him the whole like father figure, enough. Oh man, it's a great video. If you have 2 or 3 minutes, do yourself a favor. He's trending on Google, he's trending on Twitter, he's trending literally everywhere. Just type in Nick, and I bet you if that doesn't show up, type in the letter T after that, and it will come back up right after that. Yeah, but here's the thing: is if you don't check the game notes, that's gonna happen to you 10 out of 10 times. Now, let's. How can we bring this story into a VGK related now? And I would like to say, first off, thanks for stopping by for another episode. But secondly, if you've listened to every episode, which a couple of you have, I've recently since changed a tune and amended some things, but I'd like to make further amendments to that. Just how I feel like everybody should have a second thought. We all grow, and if you don't grow and learn from your mistakes and your thoughts from the past, then you're never going to progress and evolve as a human. And as I'm not a young man, but I'm not an old man either, and I have a lot of life ahead of me. And if I don't grow, I feel like I'm doing my sons a disservice. So I've long since thought that in a hand-to-hand, one-on-one combat where you could utilize your feet and hands and body and wrestle and box and do all that stuff, like a sanctioned MMA match, but like a fist fight. It has been a time or two where I feel like I could have beaten up a one Zac Whitecloud. Now, given the video that I just saw, now Zac Whitecloud and Nick Tarnasky are completely different players. Let's just be very real about that. But, you know what? If you're involved in a professional sport and you're in their strength and conditioning program, and even if you might not be that hard-nosed, gritty, physical player, you have in your pinky, just by proxy of who you are, more strength, talent, and athleticism in your pinky than I do in my entire body. So I had said I was beat up Zac Whitecloud in any facet, and then I amended that to if it was a land fight, I could beat him up. On an ice fight, he mops the floor with me. I don't think I could get even into his like I wrestled in high school and I was pretty okay, but like I couldn't even there's no way I'm getting in on it. So in order for me to even hold any chance, we would both have to be on the ground. But at any rate, I don't think I could get him there before I've eaten several punches and or get ring tossed into oblivion. So, if for any reason you ever do see this, Zach, first off, heard your stick. The guy who did my club fitting a few years ago said that you're the best golfer on the team. Now, that was back when that was probably back 2021. I don't know if there's better golfers on the team now, or if your game has evolved so much so that no one's catching you. So congratulations on the golf game. Also, congratulations to how your hockey game has evolved. I feel like you're a very more physical player, and if you do end up ever hearing this, just remember that I was a younger man when I thought those things, and I'm allowed to be wrong too. And as a fan, it's short for fanatic, and sometimes when you're in the throes of watching something, you're not thinking clearly. And you know what? After a long time and watching that video, cooler heads have prevailed. And I just want to reach out and say, hey, Z, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're captain one day, in my eyes. But, maybe not for Vegas because um, it's just the rumor mills float around, and Vegas seems to still be in on Rasmus Anderson from Calgary. And if that's the case, it seems like Zac Whitecloud might be the asset or player going the other way amongst maybe a pick and or a prospect, which we don't have a ton of. Um, if we want to fit Anderson under the cap, it's going to look like some actual valuable roster player has to go. And since Kelly has stated, McCrimmon that is, has stated that Hurdle and Carlson are not on the trade block, he's also since said that Barbashev's not there either. So I would assume if they're getting rid of a D-man, they're probably wanting one back. And now the Vegas Calgary trading. So we traded Braden Hall to Calgary, and we've also traded Daniil Miramonov to Calgary. Now we got the better of the Daniil Miramonov deal. Didn't really pan out for him in Calgary, so we'll I think that they're going to be a little bit more cautious if they're going to be dealing, and I think they also have to they have to either think that someone like a Zac Whitecloud, who's actually evolved his game and he's an actual everyday regular NFL defenseman, is either coming back, or they have to know that they have like the Bowen Byram deal or something else in their back pocket that's almost 100%. But when it comes to trading and dealing assets and stuff, especially this time of year, nothing's 100%. And in regards to Bowen Byram, when you're dealing with the Buffalo Sabres organization, Kevin Adams as a whole, you don't know what you're getting. I don't think Kevin Adams wakes up and knows what he's getting. The way that organization handles their players and their assets and their prospects and things, it's crazy to me. They're seemingly getting better and worse at the same time. Every player that had any ounce of a future or a bright spot in the NHL, they deal away, or they let them get so disgruntled that they walk and leave for nothing. And let's go down the list. You have Ryan O'Reilly, no, he hasn't won a cup. So you have Ryan O'Reilly, Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart. I believe Carrier was on that team. I think McNabb was a Buffalo Sabre at one point. Kyle Okposo. Gosh, man, there's a list of more, but like so many since they left Stanley Cup champions on that team that it's like, boy, that's a failure. They haven't even sniffed the playoffs in more than a decade, 13 years. I think it's going on 14. Everybody who is worth anything is disgruntled and pissed off about it. And the fact that Kevin Adams still has a job is kind of insane. To be the clear cut bottom of the barrel franchise in New York when, like, I don't want to say crazy disparaging things about cities anymore, but like Buffalo fans are insane, and they you just they don't have much that they're doing other than sports in Buffalo and wings. So you got wings and sports, and you're bad at one of the sports, like really bad at it. And up until like 6 years ago, whenever they drafted Josh Allen, like they were bad at football too. Like, you want to talk about teams getting relegated or moved, like Buffalo's got to be up there. I mean, like Arizona was just mismanaging everything. Buffalo's right up there with them as far as failures go. So it's like, you guys, it's time to shit or get off the pot. Like, you got to start making some sort of effort to be better. Now, Elliot Friedman on his last episode said that 31 other teams are trying to get better, meaning they're all chasing Florida. Florida is a wagon. Florida didn't lose anybody. Florida is only getting better. Florida's players are only signing team-friendlier deals. And, I think in relates to that, I said it in a TikTok like little duet thing earlier in the week. Vegas is the Florida of the West, in my opinion. And like, if you start looking, Marner could have gotten a lot more money when he signed. We'll see when these upcoming contracts come up, like your Carlsons, your Stones. You look at Brandon Saad and Riley Smith, they signed more team-friendly deals. Now, situationally, they're at the end of their careers, seemingly, and they're only signing team-friendly things because that's probably not too much more than they would get on the open market. So, and they wanted to stay, which is super fair. But you have 31 other teams that are trying to get better. Now, are they? Because Gavin McKenna is up next year. He is probably your clear-cut number one first overall, and someone's got to be last. Someone's got to get some of that draft lottery, and I think if there's going to be at least 5 teams by November that are just like, all right, let's tank for McKenna. And, you could sit there and say that these players don't want to do that, and that's true. Players are going to play on the ice. But that doesn't stop management from not making them a better team. If you end up coming out of the gates like shit on fire, like Nashville last year, or like, not every team's going to do the Edmonton thing where they come out terrible and they win a billion games in a row and they get themselves back into the race. Like, you're going to have the Nashvilles who just stink. But on paper, they're a good team. Like, hypothetically, if Nashville won the lottery and they took, I think it was Matt Schaefer, whoever Long Island picked, like, if they go first overall, like, that's crazy. They have a great team. And I think that there was a couple things wrong with Nashville last year, but I don't think talent was one of them. I think it was just, you get down and then you don't have enough time to really gel and everything. When things are bad, they're worse afterwards. They don't just get better. Like, but the year prior, you had the Nashville situation where they were stinking, and then they came to Vegas. They had this whole plan to go to the Sphere, and they rallied around the fact that management said, nope, you ain't going anywhere. You're going from the hotel to the game, and you're out of Vegas. And they rallied around that. So I don't think that same Nashville team from last year had that moment in the year, same as New York. Like, there wasn't really that moment in the year that they could rally behind. And to New York's defense, I thought that the trading of Trouba, I thought that they would somehow come together a little better, but I think at that point it was too far gone. Something else was going on. Obviously, they thought it was personnel related, and it seemed to be, well, we'll see this year, but, you get rid of Laviolette, you bring in Sullivan, we'll find out what the real issue was. Sometimes you lose a room, and then that's that. And you know, I've said it last episode. You know, not too many. Cassidy's pretty hard on his players, and they seem to have some quote unquote per Elliott Friedman harsh conversations at the end. And it's not clear if that was coaching down to players being harsh or if it was players back up to coaches being harsh, if it was a mix, if it was the front office coming down to the coaches. So, I don't know what we'll find out there, but, we'll find out too. Like Vegas had is going to have some adversity to get through. Their adversity is different. It's like, how can we prolong our playoff experience and get further along and make another true run at a cup? Whereas Buffalo's, Nashville's, last year, New York's adversity was like, how could we just get to the end of this year and try to see what we have left and go from there? But yeah, it has been 8 days since the trade deadline, 9 when this comes out, maybe 10, depending on editing and how long it takes. Jack Eichel has not signed an extension. There are whispers, very faint whispers, that I think it should come down pretty soon. We might hear something by the end of the week, by Friday. That would be really sweet. Obviously, get the business done and tidied up. I think he's going to go 8 times 12.5. I don't know what the math is on that. Let's just check it out. I'll bring the phone out. Not a math guy, not a stats guy, just a guy with a microphone and some crazy thoughts. 12.5 times 8 is $100 million. That's flat. That's nice. Let's just say 12.75 times 8. 102. I think Jack wants to win. I think he wants to be in a winning situation. And I think him and I don't know if he's married or engaged. I think he's engaged. And, if you plan to have a family, it's a great place to do it. Now that you have Marner locked up for 8 years, I think that's a big piece, and it kind of shows good faith to Jack. Like, we are going to, if they don't do the Marner deal and they get like some sort of like shorter term contract on Marner, or they ended up coming out with like the Ellers deal, 6 times 8.5 or something like that. I don't think that's enough to show Jack that they're serious about continuing to keep the window of winning and cup contention open. So I think by signing Marner to 8, signing these really good contracts as far as the Caden Korczak contract, that's a cost-controlled young defenseman, and he's locked up for a few years. So I think keeping these out, we have Hill for the next 6. We have Shea and Noah signed for 7. I think that shows good enough faith for Jack to sign a long-term extension. He's 28 years old. Coming out of an 8-year contract, he'll probably get one more. Maybe it looks like a Stamkos sort of thing. Play out the rest of his career someplace else if that's what he envisions for his life and family and career. My guess would probably be Boston. That's where he's from. And I think, he's a cup champion. He probably wants some personal hardware, but I think above all else, these players, they want legacy and they want these cups. And if you've already got them and you've already got paid, you have a little bit of individual hardware at the end of your career, I think that's when you go to like an Original 6 franchise. That's when you go to your hometown, a la Jonathan Toews. He had a great career. It seemingly got cut short. He took some time, got his body back, and now he's playing for his hometown club. I think that's great. Also, he's got one of the quotes of the offseason where he's like, listen, I don't want to get anything given to me because of my name. I will start on the 4th line, and I will work my way back up. And honestly, obviously, he's probably still better than a 4th line player, but like, what better way to like, first off, show the boys that you're not a diva and it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. You're here to work now. And for a club like Winnipeg, I think that they need that hardworking blue collar mentality. Look what they worked and worked and worked, and they got some success this year in the playoffs. And obviously they did what they did in the regular season. And Connor Hellebuck in the regular season was just unbelievable. Playoffs, he was a little leaky. proved some doubters wrong, though. He won some big games, even on the road, which seemingly was his biggest gripe, or the biggest gripe against him. Um, and I think obviously he's going to work himself up the lineup a little pretty quick. But man, what a message to the young guys on the team too. Like, look, this is a legend in the game. You probably grew up watching him, maybe modeled your game after him, and he's saying, "Hey, I'm willing to be on the fourth line." Like that, to me, is like what you want a player like Nikola Ehlers to have seen. Like, yeah, I know you want these big time minutes up top. You probably somewhere else deserve that and should be there. But like, look at this guy. Like, that's a legend with his name on the cup multiple times, and he's fine where he's at because he wants to win and he wants to make the people around him better. And this right here, this crest up top, is way more than that name on the back. And I know that that's a cliche saying, and obviously you're quoting Miracle and you're doing all that stuff, right? Like, who do you play for? But like, it's true. And so I think, especially if you have a young group, like, you really want something like that to happen. And I think it's great. And God, man, like, there's some like the Winnipeg fans. They come out, they show out. They're an awesome fan base. You got a couple of stinkers in there. There's a couple of very loud stinkers in there, and I think everyone knows who we're talking about. But like, other than that person, man, you want to see them succeed. Um, Especially like how the way Shifley's season ended and everything. It's like, oh man, like gut wrench for the dude, but you know, you wish nothing but the best for him. So, um, yeah, moving it back to Vegas, I think that deal gets done. End of the week. Let's go. Official prediction: 8 times 12 and a half. That'll be very team friendly for Vegas too. And then it locks up your two big star forwards for what's that? 24 and a half. And with the cap rising, that'll look like in 2 years, 12 and a half is going to look like his current contract at 10. So like, I think that's, and I mean, he's made a good living already. He's made a lot of money. So I think Jack can take that and still do everything he needs to do while still giving Vegas that little bit of wiggle room to continue to build some people around him. Like, we have some deals coming up soon that are, hopefully, like Mark Stone at that point might be more of like a $7 million player. Like, hopefully he takes the John Tavares kind of deal and he comes down, even though he's still the captain and all that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm just excited to get this season underway and excited to see some real news. But all right, put it out in the vibes in the world is Jack 8 times 12 and a half. That's my official prediction, and that's what we're hoping for before week's end. If you go golfing this week, mind your P's and Q's. Don't mouth off, especially if you're drinking. What are we doing, guys? Shouldn't be getting into fights on the golf course. You're all adults. Find a friendly banter and shit talk. But like, if it starts getting too crazy, you might end up on the recipient end of a Alberta ass whipping, and it might not be good, and you might end up viral on the internet for all the wrong reasons. That guy's got to go to work on Monday, dude. Like, what? Or imagine going home and be like, oh yeah, golf was whatever. I kind of got into this little tussle, and his wife's like rolling her eyes or whatever, and then like later on that day they're eating dinner and like, is this you? What's going? Dude, you've lost all credibility in your household. If you have kids, like say my kids were older and they saw a video of me just getting like, he looked like one of the fish from like that Seattle market where they're just tossing. What's that market called? Pike's Place. They're just tossing salmon. You just like out. What in the world? If your kids ever see a video of you getting tossed like a salmon, you're no longer allowed to ground them. Hey, go take the trash out. No. You want me to call Nick? Beat the shit out of you? You go take the trash out. You kidding me? No. You clean my room. I'm not cleaning my room. I'll call Nick, dude. Enough. Bang. What? Take the trash out, Dad. Don't fight. But hey, I appreciate you guys' ears. As always, thank you for your ears. Thank you for your time. If you like this episode, please click like. If you liked it enough to send it to someone because you think it was entertaining in some facets, share it. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast. I think I should be very shortly, and I know I've said this a couple of times, but very shortly in the queue for iTunes or Apple Podcast and Spotify. At least I know for a fact before puck drop on the opening on the regular season, this will be available everywhere. But yeah, got some new mics coming too. That's very, very exciting. I think that they'll be magnetic, so they can come right here, and I can use both hands because I'm a both hands talker. And then the studio should be ironed out because I got some extra equipment to hopefully make the current equipment work and be all copacetic. But yeah, that's it. I appreciate you guys. As always, go Knights. Besos, mi amigos. I will see you again in a few days. Later.